White House national security spokesman has warned that Iran may launch a major attack on Israel this week. John Kirby says the U.S. agrees with Israel's assessment that it could happen and has called for necessary preparations to be made. Iran blames Israel for killing the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran last month and has threatened to retaliate. The Americans have increased their naval presence in the region, and there's been a coordinated effort from the governments of France, Britain and Germany to try to persuade Iran not to go through with an attack, emphasizing that such a move might jeopardize peace talks that are meant to take place later this week between Hamas and Israel.
Meeting still scheduled for Thursday the 15th. We fully expect that those talks are going to move forward. And they need to move forward. All negotiators should return to the table and bring this deal to a close. It's time to do that. The details are of such a nature that we think they can be hashed out. More critically, it's time for Hamas to release the hostages, which of course include American citizens, and help us all bring some relief to the people of Gaza. They say they care about the people of Gaza. They say they care about the Palestinian people. One way to prove that is to sign up to this deal, show up, close it, and let's get it done. But as I said in my previous couple of answers, we do share the assessment made by our Israeli counterparts that that something could happen as soon as this week by Iran and its proxies. And just to be crystal clear, in case anybody's going back on my language here, that is a U.S. assessment as well as an Israeli assessment. Our assessment matches the Israeli assessment.
That's the White House national security spokesman, John Kirby there. Well, for more on this, let's cross live to Tel Aviv and speak with Arise special correspondent Carl Bostic. Good to see you, Carl. So a warning from the White House that Iran may launch a major attack on Israel this week, and the Israeli military is saying it's at peak alert for a potential attack, not just from Iran, but from Hezbollah as well. I mean, how real is the risk of all-out war that we've been hearing about?
Charles, good evening. Unfortunately, it's too real because of all the uncertainty, and even the uncertainty is really part of the warfare, which could be considered almost like psychological warfare. To add what you just showed with the comments by the National Security spokesperson, John Kirby, on Sunday, it's also reported that the defense minister here in Israel, where I am, Yoav Gallant, he had a phone conversation with the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, where he said that Israel was expecting and preparing for a large-scale attack from Iran and its proxies within days, possibly. And we're preparing along those lines. And by large-scale attack, Charles, I must point this out. Back in April, you may recall that there was, for the first time, a direct attack from Iran against Israel, where more than 300 rockets and missiles and even drones were targeted at Israel, 99% intercepted. What's different this time is that there could potentially be a wave of attacks, not only from Iran, but also from Hezbollah and other proxies, but more than just a one-night situation. It could be actually last for a few days, Charles. And to give you a sense of just how, you know, it's so much of a psychological thing, Charles, today is the end of a religious observation period. It's not an official holiday, but it's a religious observation commemorating the destruction of Jewish temples almost 2,000 years ago. As a result, people are fasting in Israel. Streets are empty. People aren't even going to the beach. However, this afternoon, Charles, 2 rockets were fired from Gaza. One was intercepted before it could leave Gaza. The other was intercepted over the Mediterranean next to Tel Aviv. And there were scenes of panic, of people running out of the water, running from the beaches, basically showing, Charles, after 10 months of war, that Gaza still has Hamas still has the capacity to fire rockets into Israel. So there's real real terror here on the ground here, Charles. And then one quick thing I was just mentioning is that you've got, because of all these different scenarios, there's a lot of preparation going on in the north, where I've been to several times, and even the airport here in Tel Aviv, Charles, where I am, Ben Gurion Airport, there are contingency plans to have it moved to Eilat. the southernmost part of Israel in case this war begins.
I'm just picking up, Carl, on some of what you said there. I mean, military analysts are suggesting that probably there'll be a coordinated attack between Iran and Hezbollah, which will make it more difficult for Israel to withstand. Is Israel preparing for war not just with Iran, but with Hezbollah as well?
A lot of multiple scenarios out there, Charles, because you have to also consider Iran and Hezbollah also have different agendas as well. I mean, for example, Iran is saying that it's its moral duty. They have the right to retaliate, to respond because of the killing of the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh on its own soil, really kind of, quite frankly, covering up the fact that it was because of security breaches within its own organization. You have Hezbollah also saying that a threat is imminent. The real question is this, Charles. Thursday is the proposed date for a summit, all right? And tomorrow's Wednesday. It's not even clear if Hamas will show up. If anything, there seems to be less enthusiasm about making this summit successful, even though it's being called the Last Chance Summit or 0 hour for peace in the Middle East before a broadening war. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that Iran has already said that unless there's a ceasefire deal with Hamas in Gaza, there will be an attack. The question is, will they try to sabotage a summit on Thursday or not? And Hezbollah, for its part, they're giving no indication of what they'll do next. But will they try to sabotage it? We could be looking at something entirely different by tomorrow, Charles, when we're speaking tomorrow. Or we don't even know if Hamas is going to show up, because Hamas is saying that we're not sure if we're going to attend the summit in Doha because we want a guarantee of an end to the campaign by the Israelis. And then Israel has also maybe lost enthusiasm because it's reported that Israel has increased its demand despite the U.S. trying intensely to prevent the spread of a wider war. There seems to be, this is really part of almost like a revenge war. Each side has a reason for revenge. Iran, Hezbollah, and Israel. And then finally, Charles, you talk about the hostages, whether it's disinformation or not, Hamas to kind of taunt Israel, where I am. They're saying that one hostage has been killed by Hamas and 2 others critically injured. Those 2 others happen to be women hostages. So there again, we just simply don't know, Charles. These next 48 hours could really take this region to the brink of a widespread war.
Indeed, and very worrying there, Carl. But I was reading somewhere that for the Iranians, something that might restrain their hand is the possibility that Israel might attack their nuclear facilities as well as their oil resources and infrastructure. Might this threat to their strategic interests restrain Iran?
Charles, that's really part of a larger question about why is Iran kind of like, playing things closely. You need to remember, Charles, this goes back to 2 weeks ago where you had the inauguration of a newly elected president. That's Masoud Pezeshkian. And Charles, you need to understand this. There's still not yet a functioning government or cabinet with this new minister. The cabinet has not yet been selected, has not been sworn in. So, from day one of this new government, they've hit the ground running and they don't even have a functioning government, Charles. So there's that to worry about. And what you're touching on is correct, because the larger threat, even existential, is the fact that they still have a nuclear threshold program. And that's why Israel and the U.S. are so concerned about all of this. And then finally, Charles, the economy in Iran is in tatters. They have enough. It's because of the heavy sanctions imposed by the West for their effort in supporting Russia in the Ukraine war and the nuclear program. The economy only has enough cash on hand, local cash, to pay 3 days worth of salaries. And one of the ways in which Pezeshkian campaigned to be the president as a reformist candidate was to improve relations with the West and the U.S. to start reducing the sanctions. And now this will only make it worse.
Well, absolutely. And we know, Carl, that there is a big coalition led by the US and regional allies to try to stop this possible war. How is that looking?
Well, that's what's interesting, Charles, because already it's been announced that, this is such a fast-moving situation. It was announced that the U.S. is now redeploying a nuclear-powered guided missile submarine called the USS Georgia. That's now being heading towards off the coast of Israel. So it's a submarine that can launch guided missiles anywhere to Hezbollah in Lebanon or even Iran. So you're looking at that kind of situation where they're carrying out massive deterrence, and at the same time they're preparing, sending in more naval vessels that have the capability to launch F-22 fighter planes and F-22 Raptors. Again, which can strike these long distance targets, Charles. But the Achilles heel for Israel's defense, even the U.S., is the drones, because what part of strategy could be, Charles, is this: despite this vaunted Iron Dome missile system that Israel has, thanks to the U.S. backing, they've been unable to really deal with the drones. And the final point I'll make is this, Charles: in the 2006 war, Hezbollah fired 5,000 missiles over 5 weeks. In the past 10 months, they've fired about 5,000 missiles, drones, and rockets over 10 months. 5,000, okay, Charles? But in the past 16 months, they now have an arsenal of 150,000 rockets and missiles parked on the Israeli border. So, Charles, they could potentially fire thousands of rockets and missiles every day across Israel, including Tel Aviv, where I am. And that's why there is so much tension, not only in Israel, but across the region and also for the rest of the world.
Carl, thanks very much indeed. Thank you for keeping us informed, and do keep us posted, and do take care. Carl Bostic is Arise special correspondent. He was talking to me on the line there from Tel Aviv.